Get us started. I want to welcome everybody. Before we get rolling into our business portion of our meeting, Paul let me know that Roger Zumwalt passed away a couple of weeks ago. So let's give a moment of silence and respect for the loss of Roger. Thank you, everyone. If you have a guest or you're a visiting Rotarian, please drop something in the chat box and let me know. And then also, I want to give Dawn a shout out for facilitating the meeting last week. I watched the recording so I could see Chief Womack, but what totally cracked me up, Dawn, is that when you said, "Now I know why Sue keeps putting her head down," because you're looking in the chat box.
It's okay, you're coming up.
I think you guys thought I had a twitch, but no, it's the chat box. So thank you again, Dawn. I really appreciate your help with that. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if we might, Jessica. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Julie Hilty, I want to welcome you for your inspirational words in our invocation today.
Thank you. Since we'll be talking about hunger, I want us to take a moment to soak in these words. This is A Spoon Feeds Hunger by Diane Parks. Let's take a moment. What I want is for you to feel everything, for you to take your spoon and start digging into their place of less than, their plates of empty, their bulging bones, that growling ache that crawls across promises, that easily floats through hunger like air, that drags them into sleep, wakes them up, disappears, and comes back again as empty air. What I want is for you to feel everything, for you to take your spoon and empty yourself out, for you to dig up every song, every dream, every day, every week, every year, every breakfast, every lunch, and every dinner. Empty them out until your belly resembles their belly, until their spasms leave, until whispers are no more, until breathing looks back at you, until hope slips into your pockets and you become a spoon to feed hunger. Amen.
Thank you, Julie. Let's next move to welcoming guests, and we have quite a few today. Shane, I'm going to start with you, and then Rick, we'll move on to you.
Hi, President Sue. Jane Griggs. I have two guests today. One is Mark Shipman, who is partner with Salfeld Griggs, and he will be shortly introduced as a new member. So please join me in welcoming Mark. And then my second guest is my grandson, Jack. And some of you may have seen him testify in front of City Council last year on the homelessness issue. Jack is a third grader at Shirley, and he's doing the hybrid learning. So please join me in welcoming my grandson.
Hi.
Jack, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Very good. Thanks, Jane. And then Rick, you had some guests.
I have three guests. Josh Gwynn. Josh is our Josh, I'm sorry, I'm going to get the title wrong, but he's our coordinator for kind of all business partners and food drives. We have Sam Tinney. Sam does all of our marketing and communications. And Ian Dixon McDonald, there's Josh, and Ian Dixon McDonald, who is our Vice President of Programs and is going to be co-speaking with me today.
Very good. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. All right, I don't see any visiting Rotarians. Adam Kohler popped a opportunity in the chat box for everyone. Small grant applications are now open and you can go to our website for details. The deadline is April 12th and you can connect with Adam if you have any questions or want additional information. So thanks for that, Adam. Let's see, Trisha, up for bell ringers.
Hello, everyone. I'm joining you today from my car as they get ready to drop my son off at school, which I'm very excited to say that they're going back to school and being in person. You can see him in the background. Say hi, E.
Hey there.
He's just as cute as a baby goat, if not cuter. So we have one bell ringer today that came in, and it is from Mr. Chuck Swank. Let me read it. I want to ring the bell to recognize Salem Health. My COVID shot process was so easy, from scheduling the appointment to the care at the fairgrounds. Also, thanks to the Oregon National Guard, so different from what we hear on the news from Portland. Thank you, Salem Health. So President Sue, please ring the bell for Salem Health from Mr. Chuck Swank.
And I'll join on that one.
Nice.
They made it very easy for kind of a stressful appointment. So
For sure. And they were definitely trailblazers as I work with different areas and different organizations and getting vaccines out for the youth and our providers. They were definitely trailblazers in opening up that clinic and opening it up for the expanded people. So it's great work.
yeah, well done. Well done. Looks like John McCauley is joining in that bell ringer. There you go, John. Are there any bell ringers from the floor for Trisha? Give it a sec. All righty. Thank you, Trisha.
You're welcome.
And hope he has a wonderful first day back at school.
Thanks.
That's exciting. All righty, Shane and Mark.
Yay.
Yay.
I am so excited to introduce Mark Shipman for membership. I've had the pleasure of knowing Mark and his wife Sheila for a number of years because Jim was a partner with Mark when he was practicing law at Sawfield Griggs. Mark was born and raised on the east side of Seattle and graduated with a bachelor's degree from Western Washington University. My gosh, you shaved, Mark. Oh, sorry.
He did.
And the side.
That's totally off script. Sorry. Mark and Sheila eventually moved to Salem so that he could attend law school at Willamette. And he joined Sawfield Griggs in 1999, where he specialized and continues to excel in real estate and land use law. Mark and his clients often appear before Salem Planning Commission, which is where I see him. And he has the respect of all the commissioners, of city staff, and of course his clients. Mark is so adept at his practice of law, i.e. land use, that he successfully managed to open a diner serving a whole pig barbecued in the office parking lot. Now, nowhere is that a permitted use under the Salem Revised Code, but all evidence was quickly consumed before code enforcement could occur.
Right.
And that is true. I mean, part of that's true. In his spare time, Mark is serving on the Salem Kaiser Citizen Bond Oversight Committee and has also served on the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce Board, the SEDCOR Board, and the Downtown Advisory Board. Mark and Sheila have 2 adult sons, one who lives in Ogden, Utah, and one that lives in Independence. He enjoys downhill skiing, bicycle touring, and of course, barbecue grilling. So with that, I am so excited to have Mark as part of the Rotary Club. So back to you, President Sue. Do your
Thank
thing.
you. Thank you, Shane. So thank you for introducing Mark to members into membership in our club. Recognizing folks that will continue to build this great club and bringing them on board is very important to our livelihood as an organization. To show our appreciation, Shane, the club will award you with 250 Paul Harris points towards your next fellowship. So thank you again. Mark, through your membership in Rotary, you can build lifelong friendships and join forces with like-minded people around the world who desire to make a difference in their communities. Our club is made up of leaders and potential leaders who are inspired by our motto, service above self. As Rotarians, we have all pledged to uphold the highest ethical standards, subscribe to the object of Rotary, and live by the 4-way test. Regular attendance at our weekly meetings is an important part of your membership, but Rotary is so much more than that. As you become more involved in our club, you'll begin to understand the power of Rotary through expanded friendships and involvement in your choice of many committees that we have to offer. As you build those friendships and contribute to our impact here and around the world, you will truly understand what it means to be a member of this club and one of over 1.2 million Rotarians worldwide. We're a vibrant, action-oriented club, and as such, we expect you to roll up your sleeves and become involved. Therefore, Mark, as the newest member of our club, do you pledge to uphold the 4-way test, to serve on at least 2 committees, and contribute to the club in every way that you can?
I do.
Great, wonderful. So fellow Rotarians, do you pledge to warmly welcome Mark into our club and to offer him your full support in all that we do?
We do.
We do, thumbs up. So welcome, Mark, as our newest member of our club and of Rotarians around the world. So we're super excited to have you be a part of our membership.
Thank you, Sue.
So round of applause, round of applause. Jessica, we need to get a clapping machine, I think.
Yeah.
All righty, we are cruising through our program, folks. So next up, I want to introduce Justin Tyler, who is our program chair today, and he will be introducing our guest speakers.
Perfect. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right. Good afternoon, President Sue, fellow Rotarians. My name is Justin Tyler, and today I am introducing our meeting's presentation. As we all know, it's March, and today we're kicking off Hunger Awareness Month. So you ask yourself, I'm aware that there's hunger in the community. Why do we need to dedicate a month to it? Well, the answer is simple. You know, I think most of us deal with so many trials and tribulations every day that hunger is not at the forefront of our mindset. So we need a little reminder every once in a while to say, hey, there is a portion of our community that is food insecure or hungry. To put it into perspective, the Oregon Hunger Task Force has stated that more than 500,000 Oregonians are food insecure. Furthermore, I think most of us live well-appointed lives. Now, what I mean by well-appointed is this. We can walk up to the refrigerator, see that it's empty, go to the grocery store, swipe the card, and then refill the refrigerator without too much thought about it. Well, there's about 12 to 14% of our community that doesn't have that luxury. They need to rely on things, food philanthropies, in other words, food banks, or even sending their kids to school to get the foods that they do need. Lastly, I think most of us like to be made aware of current events and how those current events affect the world around us. 2020 was filled with nuance, as we all know. First, we dealt with COVID and all of its complexities, and then the ensuing unemployment because businesses had to close their doors. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, we were hit with one of the worst wildfire seasons in Oregon history. Whole communities were displaced, thereby creating even more demand for basic necessities like food and creating greater stresses on those systems that then disperse those resources. So I'm going to circle back around to the question of why. So why do we need to be made aware? Well, I think when you're made aware, you're given some perspective. And when you're given perspective, it allows you to become, well, empathetic. And when you're empathetic, I think that makes you a better community partner, because you understand that sometimes life circumstances can be rather unforgiving. There's no better person to articulate our food challenges within our community than our own Rick Gaupo. He is a champion for the hungry, and he's very passionate about food. Most of us know Rick, so I'm going to keep his introduction rather brief. Rick Gaupo is president and CEO of Marion Polk Food Share. He's been a part of the organization for 10 years and has been an integral part of their current successes. He's a Willamette University alumni, a fellow Rotarian, and believes adamantly in giving back to his community. So after much ado, I welcome Rick Gaupo.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Justin. That was great. I did this in the introductions of guests, but this is a team effort. Ian will be my co-speaker, and you're going to meet him in just a second. But Ian is just amazing. He's basically anything that we execute in our community. Ian is helping design and make sure is successful. Sam is on our team, and Sam is providing all the slides. And we have a lot of slides that aren't trying to be bullet points examples of the food share. They're trying to provide you a glimpse of some of the images that I'll be talking about. So it's not a one for one. I'm talking, here's the slide for it. And then Josh Gwynn. Josh is so talented in making sure our partners feel successful and implement food drives or engagement in the issue of hunger as they want to. So thank you. So this is our team representing the food share. Emily, I'm going to call you out. She's on our staff. She's a regular Rotarian and not part of today's presenter. So that's the food share representation today. Hey, there you go. All right, thank you so much. And Justin, I want to thank you and Sue and the club. You have continued to make hunger in our community an issue that you care about. The issue, the long term, and I think we can pass the slides over now to Sam. That'd be helpful. The long term issue of Rotary partnering with and caring about the issue of who's hungry in our community and what we can do to solve the issue of hunger or address the issue of hunger. Rotary, for more than 30 years, has says this is an area in our community that we want to take action on, and I think that's been incredible. And then I always say this is never about Marion Polk Food Share. We just happen to be the lead agency addressing hunger, but we are the lead agency in partnership with so many others, including our pantry network, including many, many other people who care about how we address hunger in our community. So we're going to be the spokesperson for it, but the issue is hunger in our community. Go ahead, Sam, next slide. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is just what is the lay of the land. And just to be clear, some of the data, we're all going to grab data and share data as we know it and as we have it up to date. But some of this will be like every other example where people are trying to understand the impacts of COVID. Some of the data will be more meaningful in 6 months and 12 months, but we will share with what we know now. So what I think is all of us can recognize is this last year has been especially hard, and it has been especially hard on people facing food insecurity, pandemics, wildfires, ice storms, and the language you hear people talk about, especially in the very beginning of COVID, was we're all in the same boat, and I actually think that is not the right metaphor. I think the right metaphor is we are all in the same storm. The pandemic, the wildfires, the ice storm, we all experience that. But we're in different boats. How you weather that storm matters what boat you are in entering into that storm. So when you hear that metaphor, we're all in the same storm, same boat, that's not true. We're all in the same storm. And the people on the edge, and I mean this financially, I mean this with people who are seeking food assistance, I mean this, it was just a harder year for it was a harder year for all of us, but here is the data we know. If you were above median income entering into the pandemic, you might have seen some temporary disruptions. But the fact that all of us right now are on this Zoom call is a demonstration that for most of us in this call right now, we were able to transfer our jobs to our home, to whatever environment. And for many of us, we didn't lose any income. In fact, you might have got a stimulus check, you might have got something else, you had reduced expenses. But if you were below median income entering into the pandemic, if you were in the social sectors work, in restaurants, in the food service, in any hospitality, if you were in a position that couldn't get transferred to home, you did lose income. You did lose job security. If you're in a place where you're relying on the schools, and then schools shut down, you might have had the job, but you can't continue the job because you're the one providing for your kids right now. So the way the pandemic especially, but the wildfires and the ice storm affected people matters greatly with how you entered into the storm. So here are some of the things that we know we can communicate about the increased hunger in our community. Go ahead, next slide, Sam. In our community, this isn't data we collected, this is national data right now. As of December, about 38% of all American households reported difficulty paying for usual expenses. So 38%, that's national data. We don't have that precise for Marion and Polk County. And when they say this, that difficulty of paying for, regular expenses, you have to alleviate that somehow. You have to find solutions on how you can manage your budget. And so a very logical response is to go to a local food bank, is to go to your local food pantry. And this slide right here is a demonstration. The bottom line in blue is our pantry visits that occurred in 2019. And you can see, January and February and March were just a little bit above the year prior. Then you hit March and we shut down the economy and pantry visits skyrocket. They skyrocket in April. So we should be clear. Hunger in our community is prevalent at all times. Justin, your numbers were spot on. Anywhere right around 15% of people will describe themselves as food insecure. Food insecure is a great terminology. We use hunger because for a couple reasons. It's simple, it's emotional, and we get our head around it. We get our head around hunger. But what we generally mean is food insecure. And what food insecure is the same way you think about financially insecure, the same way is that it is you are not secure in saying every day this month, I can bring healthy food to me and my family. So if you can't say that positively, that you're saying, I actually know how I'm going to get healthy food to me and my family, then you are food insecure. And so one of the largest and easiest ways for food insecure families to address that insecurity is to visit a food pantry. And one of the things I love about the whole food pantry network is it is pretty much if you show up in line, we believe you. Because there's lots of other ways to get assistance. There's lots of ways that are easier to get food. I didn't mean assistance food. When you and I go to the grocery store, we go in the time that we want to go and we buy the food that we want to buy. When you go to a pantry, you have to go under the limited hours that pantries are open, and you take the food that is available at a pantry. Now, we do our best to be as diverse in our food selection and a super high focus on healthy food. But it is what is in the pantry that's available. So 38% of families in December are reporting difficulty with daily expenses. That so naturally leads to higher visits to pantries. Now, this is the activity, but I want to show you the impact. Go ahead, Sam. This slide I think I actually think it's a little intriguing. So nearly 1 in every 4 children in our community do not have regular access to nutritious food. This slide happens to try and demonstrate 81. Each circle can demonstrate a kid. It's a 9x9 circle. That wasn't anything magical. It just happened to be that's what fit in the page well. But each one of those white boxes represent, or white circles represents 1/4 of that. And I actually like it because when I think about like a first grade in a school, that's probably could be around 90 kids. That might be low. But out of 90 kids, almost 20 or, 17 to 18 of them came to school that day came to school that day being part of a food insecure family. Now, here's the good news that we also understand about hunger and children, especially. When we say 1 in 4 children do not have regular access to nutritious food, what we explicitly mean is they come from a household that is food insecure. And we have a lot of demonstrated both quantitative and qualitative evidence that it is largely parents who are sacrificing their food quality for their children's food health. Just like that seems natural, that is what you'd expect families to do. So let me tell you, in that backdrop of the pandemic, the wildfires, and the ice storm, what the response was in our community. And then Ian's going to talk a little bit more about the impact, especially around the disparities. So pantry visits have increased incredibly, as shown in that slide. We opened up a whole new avenue of pantries. It was called the family. So predominantly in our area, if you want to get food, you have to go to a food pantry. This year, the federal government stepped up. So in response to hunger, I will tell you that there has been unprecedented support from the state and from the federal government. In March of last year, the state gave the Oregon Food Bank Network, who are one of the 20 member agencies of that network, gave the state $8 million, $1 million a week to buy food. That was unprecedented level of support from the state of Oregon. The federal government also did an unprecedented act. They created almost out of nothing, a whole new program called Farm to Family Food Box Program. Farm to Family Food Box Program. It's the politics of that are a little interesting, and I won't really go into it. I'm just going to give you a teaser on this one. SNAP, which is the major federal support program for hunger and low-income families, is tied in with the Farm Bill. It doesn't have to be tied in with a Farm Bill. It just always had for political reasons. And the Farm to Family Food Box Program was explicitly trying to support farmers right now in the time of the pandemic. Restaurants closed. Restaurants and food service programs were receiving about 40% of all food grown on farms. If that dries up, you have a lot of farmers and food processors who are left without a stream to sell their food. So the federal government basically said, we're going to subsidize farmers and food processors, and we're going to buy that food. Once they buy that food, they're going to say, oh, we got to distribute it somewhere. And food banks and food pantries became the major way that food was distributed. So it is tied up in politics, and it is also the right thing to do. So it was actually billions of dollars have gone into this program, and that has channeled just amazing food out into the community. So what happened? Not overnight, but within weeks. And this is an example of what's in that food box. What happened was we created new streams of distributing food. We created mobile pantries that would get food out to families. Also, what happened, and this is unprecedented again, is the federal government said there are no restrictions. If you show up, you get a box. And all of our other programs, there's a self-declared statement that say you meet the income qualifications. This program was a combination of supporting farmers, food processors, and also saying speed was more important than anything else. So they said, create this program, get food out into the community. And so here's an example of people, this is in our community, of people lining up for those food boxes. This is a demonstration of the immediate need as a response to COVID and the shutdown in the economy. I'll talk about this a little later. I'm curious of knowing how long some of this government intervention is going to last. Right now, we're on our 5th round of this farm to family food box program. So again, hunger has increased in our community. Government has had a pretty high level of intervention, and they've been doing it in 2-month segments. So every 2 months, they're saying, oh, wait, are we going to extend this program? And we're in a program right now that is sunsetting this month, and we don't know if the program will continue after March. Part of this program also led to we started distributing at school sites. And pre-pandemic, I knew this, I understood this, and I don't think I fully absorbed it. How important schools are to responsive hunger. You know, Sue, I know Boys and Girls Club, they've just been amazing food partners, and they help children eat nutritious food every day. It's amazing, it's just wonderful. Schools are doing that every single day of the year, not just during the school day. And schools, they were Salem Kaiser especially, they were so impressive in our community. They said, oh, if there is no school, how are these children going to get fed? This is an important part of health and education. Kids with good food in their bellies is instrumental to the health and the education of kids. And so they created almost immediately lunch programs that were a pick up and go model. So you could drive to the school that your kid was going to and pick up a lunch. But federal regulations were only food could go to students. That couldn't be carried out to food to the families. So we took the government program, a farmer to family food box program. We added sites at the schools. And so when kids were coming to pick up their school lunch, even though there was no school in session, the family could pick up a food box. And it was a great marriage. It was a great way to serve communities. And some of those pictures of the lines are at the school box sites. I'm also a little curious right now what's going to be happening long term. That program was all hosted by teachers during the summer, before the Zoom session started up. So we've scaled back a little bit of the school food box programs, but we're continuing to partner with schools. And actually, I think it's one of the bright sides of the whole pandemic is to see what the long-term relationship will be with schools. I'm going to quickly go over to wildfires. There's always more, but the wildfires, again, it affected all of us, but it certainly affected you more by where you lived. I mean, in Marion Polk Food Share, at the location, we had tons of smoke. It didn't disrupt our operation. It's not that much, but we've had presentations on how impactful the fire was, and where you were living and what your food situation was up in the canyon immediately caused increase of hunger. So within the first week of the wildfires, Marion Polk Food Share was working with our partners, and we were not the lead agency. We were support agency. This is actually a delivery to the state fairgrounds. So one thing that's been really obvious in a moment of disaster, it increases food insecurity. So food insecurity is something that has to be solved in real time in a moment of disaster. And so, what was so incredible is how many people said, we're going to care about and support the hungry. And I do not just mean Marion Polk Food Share. Up in the canyon, in fact, there was our pantries that already existed there, which thankfully none of them burned. They actually saw an immediate reduction in number of people coming because so many other locations were also saying, how can we get food out and support the canyon? And in fact, that is still existing. I'm on a weekly call right now with FEMA and several others about how we're addressing the long-term issues of shelter and food in the canyon. And we're expecting that conversation to last over 3 years. Because of all the infrastructure issues. The wildfire was the moment in time. The response is years in solving. Let me see. A couple other immediate responses to the wildfire is working with the SANIAM service integration team, already an existing group, who's already saying, how can we help families? We were able to give them $50,000 in gift cards to get to families. Because frankly, what happened is we were worried that the pantry network wasn't going to be strong enough immediately as people were trying to kind of take care of their own community and their own house. And so we were able to give gift cards that would go directly out to families so that they could use at the local grocery store. We've never done that before. I don't know if we're going to continue that type of a distribution, but at the moment in time, that was the right thing to do, those direct gift cards. And then also working with the SANIAM integration team, service integration team, they said, hey, and this was 2 weeks ago. They said, we're still finding pockets of hunger. We're still finding camps and people who are kind of making do. And then when we have somebody who says, I'm hungry, we're still struggling with how to support them. So in response to hunger in the canyon, we've hired a wildfire hunger relief specialist that is going to be working directly with the SANIAM service integration team. So they're going to be focused in responding to hunger in the canyon. And in some ways, I'm super encouraged. This is ridiculous to say it this way, but all the pandemic, the wildfires, the ice storm, it has just shown me that people immediately are saying, wait, I know this has led to higher hunger. What should we do? And the response has been incredible. And then I'll just finish up on this before I turn it over to Ian. The ice storm, relatively short in experience. I mean, it's still painful. It could have been, you could have been without power from, you might have not lost power. You might have lost power for 9 days. We serve a crowd, seniors, Meals on Wheels. Meals on Wheels is a daily service of getting food to seniors. Thankfully, the week before the ice storm, we got out extra food boxes. We do this every year. We do a winterization box for incidences that happen and when we might not be able to deliver. So we do extra food that seniors are going to hold on to and keep in case there's a disruption in delivery. So that was great. We, like everyone else, we were surprised, for some people on how long this ice storm was going to last. And we were concerned that the families, those extra food meals, those extra meals weren't lasting. And on top of that, the place we make meals is Center 50 Plus. That was without power. So on the Monday after, ice storm starts on Friday night, Saturday morning, on that Monday, we were still without power. And we were worried. And so for the first time ever, we asked our volunteer drivers to still run their route without food. And it was a wellness check. It was just knock on the door and say, how are you doing? And do you have enough food? Because again, we had extra meals. And so that wellness check said, if they said, no, I'm hurting for food, they called the office and then we got them a different supply of food. We honestly didn't have enough food to deliver every senior our normal amount of food. We do about 800 meals a day out to the community. We didn't have that type of preparation, but we could do it for anyone who said, I don't have enough food, and we got them out food. We did that on Monday and Tuesday, and then we were back up and running on Wednesday. So what I wanted to talk about was kind of the immediate big picture, that whole kind of metaphor of same storm, different boats, and then the community's response. And again, the food share, we were the lead organizing agency, but it was always because so many parts of the community said, we're going to address this, we're going to help on this. I'm going to turn it over to Ian, and Ian's going to talk a little more about the impact, especially the disparities of impact.
Great, thank you, Rick. Yeah, so I'm going to take a minute to zero in on the ways that both COVID, the economic impacts of COVID, and by extension of that, of hunger, has had a disproportional effect on certain populations in the community and what the community has done to respond to that. So as a starting point, there's a stat out there that 45% or 48% of people across the country experienced an income loss. So either a job loss or a reduction in hours due to COVID, the effects of the economic impacts of COVID and the closures of the economy and that type of thing. But when you look at that a little bit closer, there are certain sectors of jobs that were hit harder, of course. Rick mentioned some of those earlier. And then within those sectors, there's certain populations that are most likely to hold those jobs. So we see a disproportional impact, for example, in communities of color with the economic impacts of COVID. You can see especially that jump from 48% as a national average to 62% for Latinx households experienced a job loss due to the pandemic. There's similar numbers out there that the pandemic had a disproportional effect on women and single mothers in particular, as well as just low wage earners in general. Many of the folks that lost jobs or lost hours were all on kind of the lower end of the wage spectrum. A lot of those service positions, hospitality positions, that type of thing. So we see a disproportional impact of COVID, like we do with many things across our community. That hit communities of color, single mothers in a stronger way. And so then there's intersection too. If somebody hits multiple of those different categories, then they're going to be hit even harder with these impacts. So then we saw the same thing happen locally with people coming to seek food assistance. So the national trends that showed in the data also showed up here. So when we looked at where did the need spike, right after COVID and has been and sustained afterwards, those areas tend to be the areas with higher density of communities of color coming to get services from the food share. So we looked at the Woodburn area, North Marion County, and this photo here is from Aware Food Bank in Woodburn, as well as Northeast Salem. And those are the areas that drove those numbers. So earlier you saw those overall pantry numbers and you saw those spikes come up. There are some parts of the community that actually saw pretty flat numbers and some parts that saw even a little decline, potentially due to people not wanting to leave their home as often. But the overall numbers are up and heavily driven by Northeast Salem and Woodburn, and specifically at the locations where communities of color are most comfortable, most likely to come in for food assistance. So it was interesting to see that interesting and impactful to see that those national trends were playing out here locally as well. So while our overall pantry network, year over year is about a 27% increase, there are certain particular food pantries, certain locations that right after the pandemic, we're seeing threefold, fourfold in their numbers, lines of cars out the side of the pantry for drive-up pickup. So some of our locations saw 200% increases or more in the number of people coming in to get assistance. So what did the community do to respond? We increased food. So one thing the food share did is Rick mentioned all those new avenues of food coming in, farmers to family food boxes, USDA food. Our level of community support continued to be strong. And we directed those resources towards the places that were seeing the biggest increases. So instead of an equality approach based on, say, population or something like that, we based our decisions on where the need was greatest, and particularly targeting the areas where there's higher densities of communities of color living in those places. So we increased our deliveries. We worked with groups like Aware Food Bank, which is a food bank that we run. Also Mano a Mano, a social service organization that has been working closely with the Latinx community for many, many years to increase their ability to distribute food. And then some new partners emerged as well. So we had a partnership with the Micronesian Islander Community Center before the pandemic, but it was relatively small. And that really blew up for us. We worked closely with that group to do mobile distributions, produce distributions, farmer to family food boxes, specifically targeting Micronesian Islander community that also has seen a big disproportional impact. Another group is Native Americans. We have a strong partnership with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, and we started 3 different mobile distributions reaching some different trailer parks in the area that weren't very accessible for the pantry. I mentioned Aware. We've increased our distributions to farm workers as well. And those farm worker distributions, we go out to the farm sites, included education about COVID, access to PPE available with the food. So there are communities that are not getting access to all the information about COVID as easily, don't understand what resources are available. A lot of that stuff maybe isn't always in native languages or isn't as accessible. So we were partnering with other groups to do a lot of COVID related outreach with the food for farm workers. Another group that we haven't talked about, which could be a whole other presentation, is people experiencing homelessness. But we've also continued to hold our partners that serve the homeless community very high in our priorities, and added food services, for example, for Redwood Crossing, a new housing facility, as well as the fairgrounds location that's now has the camping at the fairgrounds. And then last, I'll touch on seniors. Rick already mentioned a lot of the great work that's been done with Meals on Wheels, but we have also seen a big spike. You can imagine being somebody who is homebound, maybe has a disability, and is generally going to be your medically high-risk population. That's our Meals on Wheels clients. This is already the group for whom COVID could be a very serious thing. So within that population, the demand for Meals on Wheels went up, and it's been massive. Before the pandemic, we were serving about 500 individual seniors per day on average, and then now that number is approaching 800. It continues to grow. So for the senior population, particularly the older seniors, 85 plus, 90 plus, Meals on Wheels has become a lifeline. And has increasingly become needed in our community. And of course, we do a no contact delivery and put in many different precautions around safety for those clients. I think I will leave it at that and turn it back over to Rick. Oh, you're on mute still, Rick.
Thank you, Ian. I'm going to do just a quick things I'm thinking about, and then if we have time for questions, or if we need to, stop, that's fine. I really want to communicate both the public. First of all, need has gone up. Every sector that we measure, need has gone up. Community support has been pretty phenomenal, and government support has been off the charts, unprecedented. So here's some things I think about. I think about, generally speaking, natural disasters happen, they occur, they're a moment in time. Frankly, from a nonprofit management perspective, fundraising is high at the moment of the time. And then the response is sometimes years in the response, especially with wildfires. So again, the conversations we're on are 3-year timeline of trying to say, oh, maybe the community will return to normal in 3 years. So I'm very curious to see what the level of intervention is going to be from the government sector to support long-term impacts of both COVID and wildfire. Um, I'm curious to see what's going to happen from the public sector, the community sector of support. We're in a moment of time to understand is just like any event, will our base go back to pre-COVID? We're not expecting it to be as high, but there's a great shot of the fairgrounds. We know that need is gonna last longer than kind of the public awareness of it being like a prominent concern. And so we're gonna continue to support the community and support the issues of hunger and try and keep people informed about what's happening in hunger in our community. Overall, I was in a call with somebody else, one of my counterparts around the country, and the conversation was, what surprised you the most? It's not my thought, but she echoed it so well. Oh, she expressed it so well, is we knew the community wanted to be supportive. Somehow we forgot that how much the community wants to take care of their own community, and so I never think of this as a food share issue. I always think of this as, the community's issue on how we address hunger. And I'm so thankful that we have a robust community response. So I'll leave it at that, and Sue, turn it over to you.
All righty, Rick and Ian, thank you so much for the presentation and your incredibly important work in our communities. Are there questions from folks? If you want to pop it in the chat or use your cartoon hand and Justin, so we can see you. Rick, for us at the club, we normally serve around 87,000 meals during the school year and throughout the summer. We served almost 50,000 more meals through, like what you were doing at the fairgrounds, right? The grab and goes, so kids had food over the weekend, and it was pretty incredible, the need. Very eye-opening, I will say it that way. Very eye-opening, the need that our families had and continue to have as we work our way through all of this. So
and I see John's question, and I'll get to that in just a second, but I want to give out a shout out to Sue, to you and the Boys and Girls Club, and what partnerships do. So the Boys and Girls Club buy or get their food in a partnership with Fresh and Local. Right in the beginning of the pandemic, this is a year ago now, this, but there was that for that window in time was stopping, and Fresh and Local said, we can still make meals. And so we bought meals from Fresh and Local, and Sue's the one who helped make that connection for us. And we bought meals, and we're still buying meals actually in partnership with our Meals on Wheels program. So it's an example of partnerships make the community work.
Yeah.
John, you asked a question on community gardens. Ian, you want to briefly answer that question?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So yes, they are open. That's the basic answer. The farm in particular, we've had to put in a lot of different practices around the COVID regulations to make sure we are safe and following all those. But we are planning to operate both programs this summer. They'll just be a little bit different with all the COVID restrictions.
That's great. Thank you, Ian. Other questions from folks? Usually takes them a minute or so to frame some questions. So maybe while we're waiting for additional questions, Rick or Ian, do you have new things on the horizon that you're contemplating to be a part of Food Share? And I want to throw the partnership thank you back at you, Rick, because at many of our events, you'll bring pallets of food, pallets of produce, and our families are so grateful for that. That disappears very, very quickly. So appreciate that.
I'll just give two new things that I think about in the response to hunger. Especially in the beginning of the pandemic, we just, we're basically cutting off volunteers from coming to our warehouse to help us sort food. And it's actually a really important way we execute and distribute food. But we also we're asking pantries, the local distributors of food to not come to our warehouse. We're really trying to limit who was coming here. And we, through the help of a Pioneer Trust Bank and others, actually were able to increase our fleet pretty quickly. And we started driving food out to more local pantries. I actually think that's going to be post-pandemic true, is that we will try and have a higher service model of not asking pantries to come here. We're going to get the food to the local pantry so that they can focus on distributions. The other thing that I mentioned earlier is we just created new mobile pantries. So it's not a fixed-based pantry. It's actually going to a parking lot. It's going somewhere else. I think that will stay true as a model going forward. Kind of under the premise of go where people are. Not make people come to you. That's we'll increase those two efforts. You know, for all of you, I would just like you to just keep trying to be aware of not Marion Polk Food Share. Again, this isn't about us, but keep aware of issues of hunger and how you see that popping up and policies that affect hunger. And again, Boys and Girls Club. I just mentioned that because Sue's on the screen right now with me.
Right.
Boys and Girls Club, schools have been so instrumental in supporting hunger in our community. Just so as you think about this issue, hunger is a response, and local I'll end with this. One of the most amazing things about the hunger response, the local pantries, is it is immediate and it is a quick way to alleviate your budget pressures. If you're having trouble paying rent, you can go to a food bank. Food banks, I swear by this. We are the largest homeless prevention program because you can get money, you can get food in ways that you can't get rent assistance. And so we're helping people not become homeless. And so these conversations are so interlinked, and thank you guys all so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rick and Ian and Sam and Josh. Really appreciate your work. Your whole team over there, just incredible. So thank you for sharing with us the important message today. And in honor of you, we'll be making a donation to our very own Salem Rotary Foundation. So thank you all again very, very much.
Thank you all.
As we wrap up today, next week is the State of the City, Mayor Bennett's address. It will be a live stream. As soon as I get more info on that, we'll get the Pamela help us get that out to everyone. There won't be a Q&A session this year. So just watch for the e-blast so you know how to intersect, how you know how to intersect with Mayor Bennett's presentation next week. And then again, welcome our newest member, Mark Shipman. We're super excited to have you here with us, Mark. So thanks for joining us. And with that, everybody have a wonderful afternoon. Take care. It's good to see you.